What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Prince. Given the way things have been going, I'm guessing you're seeing this on Patreon or you're seeing this intro, and then I'm going to start being silent in a moment. Nevertheless, hopefully it somehow gets through on YouTube, but if not, I will of course post it on Patreon, and I'll put a link in the description and or comments as I've been doing. Once again, shout out to Stan, as well as to Chris and others who've been following the Prince journey, and in those cases have provided the material. And once again, we're going back to Stan's Slammin' Prince mix CD compilation. Are you gonna knock everything over? Is that the plan? Let's see if I can convince her that rather than knock everything over, wouldn't you rather be up here? Wouldn't that be a much more comfortable place once I move my tea? It's good, right? I think I've persuaded her. What? Remains to be seen. A bit squirrely, despite being feline. But yes, the next tune in the playlist, and I made sure this is not a tune I already reacted to, is Sign of the Times, and it's listed as the explicit version. And unlike before, when I swear, it looks like the French dance mix, but that's my bad. I just read incorrectly. I think it's my eyes. It's, you know, I have always had great eyesight, but as I get older, I feel like I'm increasingly like, what the hell does that say? So clearly it's me, but yes, in this case, I do not think I'm misreading it. And in case you don't get the reference, the previous Prince reaction, it's the fresh dance mix, but I thought it said French. So, in any case, Sign of the Times, you know, it's a phrase used to indicate something that represents, is reminiscent of everything that's happening in culture, society, or the public eye at a given time. It's, you know, represents the zeitgeist of the moment. I wonder what the Sign of the Times might be, and of course, even though that's a phrase you use on a large scale, I feel like it could be something between people, like, it's just a sign of the times between us, you know, like right now we're having issues or whatever it is. I feel like it could be applied on a more personal scale, even if it's a phrase that comes from, you know, looking at society as a whole. In any case, let's hear it. This is Prince, the tune is Sign of the Times, and it's listed as the explicit version. tune, and one that got very serious more quickly than I expected. But yeah, sign of the times, especially if that's what you're kind of turning your eyes to, meaning there are always, even and as someone who studies history, and sometimes people get historical nostalgia. Oh, don't you wish you could go back to this century or this decade? And historians are like, no, 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 you don't want to do that. But having said that, it is interesting to think that even in times where there was suffering and death and oppression and so on, there's often also beauty, cooperation, happiness, and so on, and ultimately in different proportions depending on where and when you're talking about. But when it comes to reporting and going back to the old school days, pre-social media, which is a whole other bag when it comes to doom scrolling and sort of seeking out confirmation of negative stories that you're kind of looking for in advance. But with sort of more classic reporting, if it bleeds, it leads, right? If it's about someone getting stabbed or someone dying in a gunfight, or a horrible police chase leading to a car crash or whatever, it's going to be the first story. It's going to be the thing that all the different channels are leading with. So those are the stories that are sort of getting sent into your head most commonly. So sometimes it's helpful to remember that, oh right, but there's charity organizations and nonprofits that try to work to help people with disabilities. There's all sorts of good things happening when those things are also happening. So but again, the idea of referencing the AIDS epidemic, referencing the Cold War and nuclear mutual annihilation, and the saber rattling of the West and the Soviet Union and so on. And what else? It was referencing again violent crime and those sorts of horrible violent stories that you hear on the news and so on. So it's the sign of the times. It doesn't sound good. It sounds this is what we're living in. This is what we're trying to deal with. But it also is being presented in this context of this funky, groovy, and again somewhat hypnotic rhythm. I enjoy those little bluesy guitar moments. The Sonics overall had a smooth flavor, which again it was a nice juxtaposition of seemingly heavy lyrical subject matter with a more light and groovy sonic terrain. So again, that's always a funny thing to me, is when there's tunes that have more intense subject matter which can be presented in a light sort of manner. This tune wasn't particularly light and bouncy or anything, but it's funny because sometimes themes will match sonic atmosphere, and sometimes it's juxtaposed, where it's oh wow, the lyrics were dark but the sonics are bright, or vice versa. So this didn't feel quite like a complete juxtaposition or opposite sort of atmosphere, but it definitely felt very smooth and nice and groovy, even as again we're talking about very intense subject matters of the time. So not knowing any better, I would say this is 80s, especially maybe later 80s, given the references being made, which again, it wasn't just it was AIDS, also drug use and so on. Again, there were a number of different aspects being measured or being referenced, and if those are all a measure of what the sign of the times are, again, my best guess is this is an 80s tune. So once again, shout out to Stan for sending this compilation. I look forward to hearing people comment on this one. And again, artists who are willing to use their art, even if it sometimes just is, there's, for me, someone who likes techno, classical music, and other ambient and so on, where in many cases, not always, because sometimes there's a conceptual background, but in many cases for those types of music, it's music for music's sake, so to speak. But I also enjoy music where, even if it's in the pop vein, even if it's popular music that gets played on the radio and music videos, or artists who play sold out venues to 25,000 people, when they address more significant or heavy issues, even controversial issues, I respect it. And again, different artists will approach those issues from different angles, maybe have different takes on them. But yeah, someone who likes punk rock, I'll never hold it against an artist for hey, I'm going to talk about some real shit right now. So shout out to Prince, and RIP to Prince. So once again, shout out to those following this Prince deep dive. Curious to hear what people have to say about this. And as I keep saying, if you're seeing this, you know already where this is. But my assumption is that it's going to get blocked by YouTube. So the music part will be silent and it'll be over on Patreon in full. In any case, I'll stop talking. Let me know what you think. I'll see you next time. Peace.